y'all. We had to pay some bills, but we're back. Thank you for tuning in to Sundays at the Square. I have Matthew Litaker, I have Matthew Litaker. He is a licensed professional counselor at a Christian clinic, Restorative
Hope Sanctuary. That's Restorative Hope Sanctuary.
Yes. And then, of course, I have the incomparable Miss Titi Ladette, best-selling author, viral video. Ooh. Oh, my gosh. CEO, just a boss in general, honey. Let's get this word. Boss. Yes. So we were just talking, and Titi was going in depth. And if you guys are just tuned in, you can always go on myb106.com. You can check out this show and all other shows. But this is a very important conversation. As you all know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we definitely want to talk about this, and we definitely want to put this out here for people that may not understand what mental health issues are, or you may be struggling and not understanding why. Hopefully this show will shed some light for you. And then we're going to give you some resources and some tools that you can take away with so that you can be able to help better yourself. Now, I want to go back to that conversation where you were kind of talking about the stigma of the different disorders and things of that nature. I would like to, if we can give just like a little brief, and I think, Matthew, this will probably go to you. Tell us a little bit about some of the common mental health issues that people deal with and a little bit of definition of what they are exactly.
Sure. So the big three that are seen, especially when you're talking about public mental health kind of things, are bipolar. Mm-hmm. And, there's subsets to that, bipolar 1, bipolar 2. Major depressive disorder, and then schizophrenia. Those are the big three.
Mm-hmm. Talk right in the mic.
Talking right up in here.
Yeah.
And I think the state of Texas, they recently released through Health and Human Services. I love the little stat. I know we're not trying to drown people in numbers, but something like maybe like 2 to 5% of the population of Texas as a whole. So out of 27 million people, there's about 2 to 5% of people that are suffering from mental health illness. And
that have actually been diagnosed.
Come on. And that's what I was going to say next. That's people who presented and been diagnosed. And so even within those three, which are, schizophrenia is not super common, but we give some resources to it. Bipolar and really depression can look different within men versus women, right? It can look different for ages. It can look different for cultures. And so, somebody opens up a book and says, well, it says here, A, B, C, D. It's like, well, I really don't fit none of those. Maybe I fit one or two. That can be disheartening, right? It's like, well, what am I going through? Why do I feel lost? And so, when we're talking about depression, for instance, and saying it can physically hurt, right? Like it can literally physically hurt to be touched, and yet you can crave having somebody to hold you, and the people around you want to reach out and hug you, and yet it physically hurts to be touched sometimes. A comforting blanket, your comforting hoodie can physically hurt you.
Really?
And yeah, sometimes. It's not always.
You've had that happen.
Yes, and I want to say all it takes is an event sometimes. That's what I tell people. All it really takes is an event. Let too many things not add up for me, and the X-Files music will start playing. And that's the only way I can say it to make the general public understand when I am suffering under psychosis. And it does happen. And I think, Toni, if you really think about it, like it's times that we're on the phone and, I'm talking 100 miles a minute and I'm going, and it's that time that I'm really suffering because it's like I have so many thoughts coming out. I have 15 conversations going on. I'm having conversations in my head right now as we talk. It's like it's just some nights I'm just like, oh God, I just want to cut my head off. But I want to say this. I want to talk about in the African American community. And I say that because, first of all, I am African American and I can only speak from my own experience.
Right.
And I know that, and I love the fact that we have Matt here because he's a professional. So he sees people in all walks of life.
Right.
And I love that. But I want to say, as far as an African American, one of the things that, and I was discussing this with someone last night, as African American people, we experience trauma on a daily basis.
Child.
It's trauma It's so much trauma that we experience, and because we've experienced such an oppressive lifestyle, that we take trauma as a course of life. Like, you know, I remember even, you know, as far as molestation, being molested, like it just happened, and I didn't cry about it until I was 40 years old, and it happened when I was 13, and it was 40 when I finally cried about it, because it was just something that happened, and you just keep it going. And that's the way we treat our mental health. And so when we're suffering with something, if we don't stop and say, you know what, this ain't right. Like, I couldn't stop crying. I had a crying spell last week. I just could not say. Everything made me cry, and I had to stop and say, wait a minute. So now I'm doing yoga, and what I'm hoping to do is clear my mind. Now I'm doing senior citizen limited mobility because I have the rock. So most of the yoga's in a chair, but it is starting to help me clear. That's a holistic remedy.
Awesome. And I want to go back to what you were saying, Matt. You were talking about like how certain disorders, they change culturally, they change by age, change by gender. So it's kind of hard to just put it all in one basket. What would you recommend for someone that's just feeling off? Like, okay, for me, last week I was in a slump. Yeah. And I don't know I'll give you a good example. Child, when I was pregnant, right?
Okay.
And right after I had my baby, I literally felt like I was losing my mind. Right. I called MHMR. I tried to get help, and my doctor was like, we're not going to put you on anything. You are dealing with postpartum depression. Right. And so what they said, this will go away. I didn't feel like it was going to go away, but it actually did. Right. But like you're talking about last week I was just in such a slump, and I was like, man, I just feel horrible. Is there a certain thing, it's like a situational thing that may cause you to feel emotions? Because I'm good now, but I was just kind of reflecting on some things that kind of like, man, I wish I would have done something different. Yeah.
Very real.
And so some of that can, would be called like transient, like people are transient, there's folks who just come and go. And so some of that stuff, like TT is saying, is situational. Another good example would be like college students and stuff. The end of the semesters always get you in a real bad place. And, we're not talking about just, if we're putting on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 is the worst and 0 is non-existent. We're not just talking about like a level 2. We're talking about a level 5 and above, where it's difficult to do some of these basic things. I mean, reach out, right? Reach out. Give us a call at Restorative Hope Sanctuary. Yeah. And, schedule an appointment. If nothing else, just to come through and talk and just say, here's what's happening in my life right now. I'm not sure if this is something serious, or, maybe I just want to talk. And so that's the other part, right? There's lots of folks who have insurance, and even people who don't have insurance, it is available to you. It doesn't have to be some big giant thing. Like I said before, just come through, reach out to mental health professionals. I need to talk about stuff. Man, I just had a kid and here's what's going on. I'm not sure. Worried about getting on meds because you're breastfeeding and, da-da-da-da-da. But just to be able to go in, because again, we're not talking about some big scary thing. We're talking about, let's go get the oil change. Let's rotate the tires. This is normative. I love what TT said about within the African American community. And so very humbly, as somebody who is not African American, I want to recognize that there is a huge impetus that's happening right now. Especially,
that's a big word.
Impetus, I know.
Explain
there's
that word.
There's a lot of energy right now.
Okay, there we go.
My bad. There's a lot of energy right now, especially for African American women, to reach out to other African American women about mental health disorders. There's books that have been written. There's conferences that happen, workshops that happen, and saying, here is a professional, here's a therapist, an African American female therapist, talking about depression and other mental health disorders within African American culture and what it looks like, the lived experience, right? So good, because we're trying to remove that stigma. And part of that, when we're talking about removing stigma, is let's talk about some things that are not going to happen. You know, we watch movies and things and we think, oh man, they're going to throw away the key. They're going to, you know, lock me away. Right. And it's like, this is not American Horror Story. And
yes. A lot of times people say, you know, I don't want to say about the thoughts or the feelings that I'm having because they're going to take my kids away. Right. I've heard that they're gonna, you know, do this. Now I know that as a professional counselor or anyone that works in that health arena, if someone says they have thoughts of suicide or they want to hurt or harm someone else by law, you do have to report those things. And I think sometimes people get afraid and they go through stuff. I look at so many stories of young mothers, and that's one of the things that's really scaring me, is I see these young mothers that are taking themselves out and taking their children with them, or they're killing their kids and they're doing these things, and you're looking and you're like, baby, what in the world? Like, why did you do this, and what led up to this thing?
So, I see you got your hand up. I want to say this real quick, is that one of the things that we can do to remove some of that is empower ourselves with the truth of what the Texas state law says about that. So if you say that you're going to kill yourself, well, we're going to check it out and see, like, do you have a plan? Do you have the means to carry it out? All those kinds of things, and really try to connect you with resources. A good professional isn't just gonna, you know, call up the people and, you know, all of a sudden folks rush in. It's gonna be some hand holding. Come on, we need to go do this because I'm worried. But you know, by law, if you get if it's a big thing, emergency services have to be called, then the ambulance and or law enforcement, depending on the situation, take you to a local hospital, Metroplex, Sky and White, Seton, whatever. And there's an evaluation that's done. Make sure that medically you're good. Of course, you know, they're probably going to check the urine too. Just make sure there ain't nothing up in there, you know? Yeah. But if there is something that's going on, especially if there was a suicidal action, some kind of attempt on your life, it's a 72-hour hold, right? So that's 3 days we're talking about. We're not talking about forever and a day. And oftentimes that can be at the hospital, the Sky and White, Metroplex, etc. And if there's things that need to happen past those 3 days, is usually your choice. And at a certain point, if that is continued, that legal hold, they have to go before a judge. They can't just okie doke you into a padded room. It's very monitored. It's very followed and structured.
And you know what, the other day, you know, not the other day, but maybe a few months ago, me and my mother were having a conversation. I remember, and even my mother, it was crazy because my mother, she deals with some things that she is very, very, you know, takes care of herself very well, but she's dealt with things with depression and things like that. And my grandmother, we used to go visit my grandmother at Shoal Creek in Austin. And as a little girl, and even my mother, it was the weirdest thing. Like, we really didn't dawn. Like, it didn't dawn on us, oh, she was having an episode. It was just, we're going to the hospital to go see Granny, and we, you know, we're going to make sure she's good, and then when she gets back home, we're going to get her back on her regimen. My grandmother was dealing with mental health issues, and I'm glad that she got the help because she was very functioning, but it was just like going into a hospital, you know, and just going to see her. And I just, now as an adult, I look back on that and I'm like, wow, you know, she had a moment. She had something, but she went in, she got what she needed, she got herself back together, and she was back functioning. And it was like nothing.
Like any other hospital.
Yeah, any other hospital. And I think that that's something that's important to understand. It doesn't make you any less of a person. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you you know, like you have
morally deficient.
Deficient or anything like that. When you're dealing with mental health, it's just like if you have to go to the hospital and take care of yourself for something in your physical, your mental is as important, or if not more important.
Absolutely.
I'll give you a good example, and this was a real study. There was a doctor, they had two different patients, same type of prognosis for the cancer, same situation. The doctor told one of them, you have a 30% chance to live. Told the other one you had a 70% chance to die. Who do you think beat cancer?
30.
And that's real talk. Right. So if you can change your mental and you can go into your mind and you can say, okay, you know what? I'm going to get this help because I need to live my best life. You can literally change. And this is where I'm going to segue to you. You can literally change the course of your life. You are dealing with mental health issues. I know your story. Look, I know some stuff y'all don't know. And I ain't going to never say nothing. Okay. Right. Look, I know the stuff ain't in the books, but what I will tell you is that to look at this woman sitting here before me today and to know all that she went through and all of those the lowest places that she has gone, and to see her walking, and not only just walking but thriving and doing her thing, it goes to show you she is the poster child of you can do this no matter what you may be going through. She can't help it that she had mental illness. She can't help it that a lot of times it's genetic. Right, you know what I mean? Right. When you tell the story of your mom and all of those things. If
there were 10 people in my family, 7 of us are on medication, and that's what it is. Genetic. It is hereditary. And my mother and my father were both mentally ill. My mother actually committed suicide. And anyone that commits suicide, attempts to commit suicide, that is a form of mental illness. I need you to know that. You know, the law of self-preservation will not allow you to kill yourself. Right. You understand? You know, I think there was a movie, I can't remember what movie it was, and Jamie Foxx used to say, bite right here in the movie. And she said, I can't, because you can't hurt yourself. Right. It's the law of self-preservation. So if you can get to that point where you can bite that, and you... So I want to say this. Yeah. I do want to say this. Touch kind of a little bit on what Maddie was talking about earlier. So about the African American community and how the women are really there's a movement right now. And as a matter of fact, I was recently the keynote speaker at the Central Texas African American Support Conference, which is the biggest mental health conference for African Americans in Texas.
Awesome.
It's the Central Texas African American Family Support Conference.
I bet that's on Facebook.
It is on Facebook, and it was at Palmer Auditorium. It was at Palmer Auditorium a couple of months ago, and it was, first of all, the biggest speaking engagement I've ever had, financial-wise and everything. But it was, I think the most amazing thing is that all their keynote speakers had degrees.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I don't have a degree, but I'm an expert in get back up again.
Come on.
And so I want to talk about what you just said about having the mental illness and pushing through, having any issues and pushing through them. So one of the things I talk about is some of the symptoms of bipolar disorder. Yeah. Believe it or not, grandiosity is a symptom. Grandiosity is a feeling of being more important than what you are. Right. Thinking you're in an unhealthy way, like to the extent, like I say, when on those days when I wake up and I feel like Superwoman and I'm fixing to change the world, I'm in a grandiose state. Because I feel like I could do more than what Toni Ringgold could do. Toni, you might could save 2 people, but I'm fixing to save the entire world.
Right. And then a lot of stars, I must say.
Right, they do. And I'm going to tell you, that happens without my permission. So I need to tell you that a lot of times, a lot of people, I have bad relationships because of that. Because a lot of people think I walk in and I think that I own the world. Right. You know what I mean? And really, it's sometimes I'm really suffering. But this is the thing I want to say this, and you talked about how to push through and thrive. Yeah. There's a saying, Socrates, one of the greatest philosophers, he said there's a I think so, therefore I am. Yeah. Right? And then there's a saying that says there's 1,000,000 miles from your head to your heart. Right? So basically, if he says I think therefore I am, that means he's connected his heart and his head. People that have disconnected hearts and heads, they think they know a guy is not good for them, but they love him, so they'll be with him. Ooh. That's a disconnect, right? So what I'm telling you know is that when on those days when I say I'm going to get up and I'm going to change the world, I think it, and guess what? I believe it, and therefore I do it. So that's how I do it. So I found a way to connect my head and my heart, and you got to. That's the way you walk and live and what you believe.
So I like what you said about genetics, and I also want to add that, yes, sometimes there is a biological component, the genetic stuff, but in the same way that we grow up cooking Thanksgiving the same way that mom cooked Thanksgiving, the same way that grandmom cooked Thanksgiving.
Learn behaviors.
And so we do relationships the same way. We watch mom interact with certain folks this kind of way, dad interact with folks certain kind of way, and we learn that and we pick it up. We don't recognize that other folks are doing Thanksgiving dinner differently, right? God bless Karen's raisin potato salad, but not everybody else is doing that, and it's nasty.
Right.
But Karen doesn't know, and so we have behaviors like that, and sometimes we look at folks and we're like, dang, what's up with that? And it's that learned piece. So if I have that learned piece plus genetic plus situational, and I don't have anybody speaking into my life, man, that could really wreck some stuff up. Even when you're talking about where a lot of people are financially, you miss one paycheck, a lot of folks, that's really going to throw you off. You might lose your car, you might lose your home,
come through
all those things. And so once again, we talking about, let's remove the stigma. Let's talk about access to care and things like this. It's big enough that the state legislature, all the big lawmakers up in Austin are talking about access to care and talking about getting people into hospitals, reducing how long it takes to get into the hospital, because there's not a lot of bed days, talking about improving the state hospital facilities, getting your insurance to pay for things, et cetera, et cetera. And that's really a big part of what we do at Restorative Hope Sanctuary.
Yes.
Is let's give you help.
Right.
Right. Like let's talk about the mundane and the big, right? Like we can't prescribe anything because we're not prescribers, but we are licensed by the state. We are professional. We are caring. And we really want to reach out and break some of that down, whether it's individuals, family, etc. And the neat thing that we get to do is incorporate horses and do equine therapy. Come on, I know it's real nice. Oh my God. And bringing that in, because sometimes it's rough to come through and feel like you about to spill tea on everybody in the family, like, oh, this is what mom or dad or brother or sister do.
And that's I'm so glad you said that, because especially I can't speak for any other cultural community, but what I will say in the Black community, what we always say is, what happens in this house stays in this house. So what you don't you be going out here telling this family this, that ain't nobody this, blah, 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 blah. And then so what we're conditioned to believe that we don't talk about things, that we don't put shed a light. And so there's so many secrets, family secrets, and so many things that get passed down. Well, from generation to generation.
And I want to say that, and that's what I love about the pink elephant. And basically, the pink elephant, a lot of people, I remember when I wrote the book, everybody was like, what? I don't understand. I don't get it. So the pink elephant is usually a term used by counselors. And it's the pink elephant in the middle of the room that says something going on that everybody can see, but nobody's talking about. I mean, how big an elephant is, and it's pink. Yeah. So, but basically, the thing about what I love about the pink elephant is that I know that, someone has to be bold enough to bring awareness to the issues, because if it's something that we're all silent about and everybody's, we're going this house, stay in this house, well, then how are we going to know how to get help? Exactly. How are we going to know where to go? So someone has to be bold enough to say, not speaking from just a clinical, because there is a place for professional and clinical. We need you, but also someone who has lived experience. And so that's another thing. So, I just want to say that I'm excited about the changes that are coming to, because it is being more widespread. It is being talked about. Right. I would have never heard mental illness on the radio 10 years ago even. I don't think I would have heard this term just so blatantly said and so blatantly done. But if you look in the back, if you've gotten my book, The Pink Elephant in the Middle of the Ghetto, if you don't have it, in the back of that book is a lot of resource information. So it is hotline numbers, and it is statistical information as it pertains to African Americans, because I am, again, Black. So I just wrote from my own perspective.
So we actually have gone way over, but I don't care because this is some good stuff, and we definitely want to talk about it. But one of the things that I want to do is I want to give an opportunity for you guys to talk about anything that you have coming up, talk about any of your platforms. I want to make sure that this information gets out. And I want to thank everyone who is tuned in to Sundays at the Square today. This is a very, very important conversation. I want to also give a shout out to my live viewers, and I'm sorry for the low connection today, but I do want to give a shout out to each and every one of you who also commented. But I want to give the floor to you guys, because if you have something coming up, if you have any information or anything, let's put that out there, and let's go ahead and let the people know.
Okay, well, I do want to say that I have the Pink Elephant stage play, which is based on my best-selling book. Our farewell performance, this is going to be our final performance on this circuit, meaning the Texas circuit. So the next time that you see us, we will either be in prison or out of state. We just can't run it in Texas anymore. So that will be at downtown Killeen at the Arts and Activities Center on May 19th.
Next week.
So that's next Saturday. It is a powerful performance. So I have that. And then on June 9th, I have my Watch Me workshop coming up. And that is a master class on speaking engagements and branding and taking your life, whatever you're doing in your life. I don't care what it is. I don't care what you do. I think you can make a business out of it. And so that's what I'm showing people how to do that.
Awesome. Do you have a website or anything?
I do. It is www.remembertothinkpink.org. Also, if you'll go on there and click on Think Pink Theater, you will see that is my mental health alternative. That is just another thing to do, because I found that it replaces the drugs. It replaces a lot of the symptoms of mental illness. It's just
we didn't touch on that, and I'm going to definitely have you come back and talk about that, because we definitely need to discuss the correlation between drug abuse and mental health issues.
Absolutely.
I think that a lot of times that people they use drugs and they use alcohol or whatever substance to cope with what they're dealing with on the inside of their brain. Also, I do want to talk about the correlation between creatively minded individuals and mental illness. I'm a creatively minded person, and I do have to check myself sometimes, like, girl, you tripping, you know what I mean? And then I look at about 70% of those that are in mass incarceration, meaning they're either in jail or prison, they are creatively minded individuals that just didn't have an outlet. So when you don't think normally, and so I was the kid that would get the right answer on the math test, but I couldn't show you how to do it, how I did it, and I couldn't give those steps like you wanted me to, but I got the answer right, and I was mad because you only gave me 50% because I didn't show my work. It's the way my brain works. And so a lot of times I see that with drug abuse, and I see with a creatively minded individuals. A good example would be Kanye West.
And Michael Jackson.
What I mean? Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston. A lot of these people that were great at what they did and were so creative and just innovative, they dealt with a lot and deal with a lot of mental issues. And so I'm definitely going to have you guys back, because I want to touch on in depth on that. But Matthew, I want to tell me a little bit of what you got going on.
So at Restorative Hope Sanctuary, we are we're taking clients. Come out and see us. You can check out the website, restorativehope.org. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, Restorative Hope Sanctuary. And just follow along, check us out, make an appointment. It's individuals, couples, families. Whether you going through something big or you going through something small, you just want to check it out.
And how's the payment? Is it insurance based or?
So you can do insurance based. That's a good one. Thank you. Insurance based, or you can do private pay. And we're willing to work with you. So give us a call. And we'll talk about all those things. A lot of times people, they trip over, well, my copay says, and say, man, give us a phone call. We're not trying to do you dirty and squeeze you dry. Let's talk about what needs to happen. And that's a really good shout out though, also for students in graduate school, or even people who are doing their licensed internship, give us a call. Maybe there's some partnership stuff that we can do, whether it's volunteering with the horses or if it's something else. We would love to have that discussion. We're very integrated into the local church, and that's a big piece for us, because we recognize that a lot of times church staff, especially pastors, they get people, coming through saying, "Pastor, my marriage, pastor, my child, pastor this," and pastor may not have the time, and pastor may not have the skill to provide that. They may have all the heart in the world, and so we would love to be that bridge. And we have spiritual covering from Pastor Scott Hawksworth at Faith Point. Awesome. And all of us are integrated in the local church. So give us a call, and let's talk about how we can help you at Restorative Hope Sanctuary.
Absolutely. I want to thank you guys for coming in today.
Happy birthday again. Yes, girl. Don't turn up, girl.
Yes. So, yes, I'm so excited. Today is my birthday. This was a great way to spend my birthday. I want to thank you guys for coming in again and expounding on mental health. We definitely went over. Trey is going to kill me. But I'm telling you, this is really, really a topic that needs to be talked about. Guys, again, if you need help, if you need to talk to someone, there are resources out there. Of course, we have Restorative Hope Sanctuary. Oh, there we go. Restorative Hope. I'm gonna mess it up. Restorative Hope Sanctuary with Matthew Litaker.
You can always call 211.
I was just about to say that. You could call 211. There are resources out there. If you ever feel like you need to talk to someone, talk to someone. Don't allow the feeling of, oh, they're gonna say I'm crazy, to keep you from getting some help.
Can I give a little shout out?
Yes.
I want to give a shout out to Transforming Life Center, TLC. Look them up. Mentorship program. They also do counseling, and a lot of times that can be an easier transition. That's with LaDonna Harris, and it's over there off of Clear Creek area by Texas A&M, Central Texas, and that can be a big help if we just get folks in somebody's life, whether that's a child or it's an adult. We can bridge that gap. So look them up, Transforming Life Center, TLC. And awesome. They're great.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you again for tuning in. Make sure that you go on myb106.com. Also, remember, I'm launching the new show, The Soundtrack, next week. Also, be on the lookout, because this week I'm going to be launching my new website, ToniRinggoldmusic.com. You'll be able to hear about Premier Music Academy. Of course, where I do my vocal lessons. If anybody needs vocal lessons or piano lessons, hit a sister up. You'll also be able to hear about my upcoming shows, or if you want to book me for singing or acting, any engagements of that nature. Also, just to let you guys know, June 15th and 16th, I am going to be doing a one-woman show. I did it in Austin. We're bringing it to Killeen, baby, in Philly-o. That's June 15th and 16th. It's Moan Them Blues, a Bessie Smith story. So I'm really, really excited about that, bringing that here. And then also on that website, you'll be able to see the show. You'll be able to hear about Sundays at the Square, the soundtrack, if you'd like to be a guest. Also, if you like to advertise your business, or you want to be able to put your entrepreneur, you want to get yourself out there. If you are having an event come up, or if you are an artist, we're going to be doing an artist spotlight once a month. Make sure that you go on that website as well. In the meantime, in between time before that website launches, you can go on, you can email me at the soundtrackb106@gmail.com. Again, that's the soundtrackb106@gmail.com. Again, I want to thank you guys for coming. Love you so much. Thank you for each and every one of our listeners. And always remember, there's enough sun for everyone to shine.
I promise.